Hey, welcome back to Hunting Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Schoening, and we have a cool guest here today that's going to be on the phone with us that we're excited to have. It's Nic DeCastro. He is the founder and CEO of LandTrust, and we're super excited to kind of hear about LandTrust and what it all entails and kind of his story behind it. And we got a few questions here, and we'll kind of see where that discussion goes. So Nic DeCastro, he's an entrepreneur based out of Bozeman, Montana, building up that LandTrust company, which is a recreation access network that kind of opens up outdoor recreation opportunities on private lands across the U.S. Nic, before LandTrust, he spent a decade or so in the marketing and advertising technology industry and led sales and partnerships for companies and built relationships with Fortune 500 companies. He's originally from California, which he'll tell us about a little bit, and how he grew up fishing, surfing, spearfishing, hunting, playing baseball, things like that. Outdoor guy, and just a good conversation here coming up. So we appreciate you listening, and yeah, here we go.
This is Nick.
Hey Nick, this is Brian Schoening. How are you?
Good. How's it going, Brian?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, let me put my headphones in real quick. Give me 1 sec.
All right.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is a Hunting Overtime Podcast brought to you by the Seasons Media. We got a special guest here today. We have Nic DeCastro from LandTrust. Nic, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going? Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out, and we're kind of excited to have this. We've looked into LandTrust. Actually, my brother and I, with the Seasons Media, just kind of as an option to get on some private land. So we're kind of excited to hear some more about it and chat with you for a while.
Yeah, really appreciate having me on, said Brian.
So, Nic, to get started here, for our listeners and viewers and stuff, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background here? What outdoor stuff? I know I've read through your background, and I'm going to read it here before the podcast when we post this thing. But just
Sure.
kind of from your view, what's that background for you?
Yep. So I grew up basically at the beach in Southern California, and I grew up bird hunting over bird dogs in the deserts down there in SoCal, and fishing and spearfishing at the beach, surfing, all that kind of stuff. I know a lot of your listeners might think that there's no hunting or fishing in Southern California. That may be more true today than it was when I grew up.
Sure.
I'm going to be 36 years old this week, so it's been a little while since I've lived there. But it was definitely a great place to grow up. So I developed a passion for hunting and fishing, with my dad and brother from, 3 years old. I think one of my first memories is going on a dove hunt in the deserts down there close to the border of Mexico.
That's
so I just developed that then, and like I said, I grew up pretty much bird hunting my whole life until about 2015 or so, when I was living in Colorado, and I did my first big game hunt, and obviously I loved that. And yeah, I've never really tried any type of or style of hunting or fishing that I haven't liked.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. We've kind of lost a little bit of that bird hunting here in Nebraska. It seems like you still have some spots, where you can get into a handful of pheasants. The doves are kind of coming back. We dove hunt quite a bit around here, but
nice.
I remember, like you said, growing up as a kid, we'd go back and we're shooting limits of pheasants every single day, and it's just tough.
Man.
If you don't have the right place to go, it's tough.
Totally.
So, you said you didn't get into big game hunting till you were a little older, so you didn't do any of that in California when you were young.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
No. It was like I said. I think it was 2015. I was living in Colorado working for another startup, and I didn't have a bird dog at the time. So if you don't have a bird dog, bird hunting's kind of hard, unless the bird hunting is amazing and there's just birds everywhere. So I looked for an over-the-counter tag, found antelope doe tag over-the-counter in Colorado, and just kind of like out by Lyman, and just went out, watched a ton of YouTube videos, honestly, opening morning, put a sneak on and shot my first doe. Probably, it was probably a 200-yard shot.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I remember walking up to her and I thought, oh my God, what do I do now? It's a lot
Not
different.
like cleaning a bird.
It's not like cleaning a bird. Like, it's not the fact that it's a dead animal. It's the fact that it's a big dead animal.
Right,
It's just,
right.
and I literally, I pulled up, I think it was Randy Newberg's gutless method on how to clean an animal. And luckily I had cell service there. So, YouTube was a big educator for me for
sure.
big game hunting.
There's so many different things. If you don't know how to do it, that's the place to go for sure.
Yeah, totally.
So with that, then when getting into the LandTrust side of it a little bit, what is LandTrust? How long's it been around? Talk to us a little bit about that. How'd you come up with this idea?
Sure. So LandTrust is, we'd probably consider it the largest land sharing marketplace for outdoor recreation. So I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with home sharing platforms like Airbnb or VRBO.
Yep.
Maybe some are familiar with like RV sharing, like Outdoorsy or RV Share. Well, with LandTrust, instead of renting somebody's home or RV, you're renting access to their land for hunting or fishing or camping, shed hunting, foraging, all sorts of different stuff. So basically, just like you're renting access to their land for as little as a day, or it could be 2 days, a week, whatever it might be. So we have about a little over 1.25 million acres today in 40 states.
Okay.
On the platform, we're growing pretty well, and we just October 2nd was our 4th birthday or anniversary, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, cool.
So we're still a pretty young company, but I mean, really. I started the company because I wanted to use the product.
Sure.
I was a very early host on Airbnb's platform when I lived in New York City, and I was traveling a bunch. And I just saw the power of kind of the sharing economy. And so when I moved up to Montana at the end of 2016, obviously both Colorado and Montana, a lot of the Rocky Mountain West has most of the public lands, and it's awesome. But, I'm sure as a lot of your, you live in Nebraska, you're 99% private.
Right, yeah.
So, but most of the country, most licensed hunters live in states with less than 20% public lands.
Yeah.
So, public is awesome, but it's just not something that most hunters have access to in abundance. Mm-hmm. And so, I was hunting on a lot of public land in Montana, but there's obviously a bunch of beautiful private land that you want to get out onto, and door knocking is just less and less fruitful, frankly. And I'm sure, as most of your audience knows, it's not 50 years ago. It's not you knock on a rancher's door and they pat you on the butt and tell you to go get it.
Yep, for sure.
And it's not. Look, I don't lay that at the feet of the farmer and the rancher. There's just a lot more people doing it, and a lot less land.
Yeah.
So. So it just said, hey, look, I'd be willing to, pay for access to this land to go and hunt or fish or do other stuff. And there's just no easy way to make that transaction happen. And so, that's why I started LandTrust.
Cool. And one thing I've actually found out here in Western Nebraska, when we're antelope hunting mostly, we have, there's a bunch of different sections owned by a ton of different people. So even if you can find the tax address and where these people live, sometimes it's not even in Nebraska. And sometimes,
a lot of times it's not, yeah.
And you can't, we're past the days now of just pulling out the Panhandle or county phone book and finding a home phone number and just calling somebody up too. So it's become really hard to even get a hold of some of those landowners.
Well, yeah, and look, I have 3 young children. I run a company, and obviously I'm married, and I don't get 20, 30, 40 days out in the field. That's just not a reality for me at this stage of my life. I'm genuinely envious of, guys who get to do that.
Yeah.
And so I say that because, all that stuff we're talking about, door knocking, opening the phone book, trying to like that's all time. Yep. And really it's time is at a premium for people like myself, and I know there's many other people we've talked to, or blue collar guys who get a handful of days off work a year, and spending that time trying to find access is by definition taking away your time from actually hunting.
And sometimes it takes more time.
Yeah. So LandTrust is a really great way for you to, it's almost like digital door knocking, and you can do it from states and states away. and everyone on LandTrust, every landowner is, they're absolutely open to hosting people out there.
Yeah. Yep. You said you're in 40 states already, and that's like all your services. So you have like when I look on your website, you got recreation, you have hunting, you have fishing. Do you know off the top of your head like how many of those states have hunting opportunities, or is that just your number with everything in it?
Yeah, so hunting is still the primary activity. So
Okay.
I would, there's very few listings on LandTrust that don't offer hunting.
Okay.
We spend our time and resources acquiring landowners who allow hunting, and then the other stuff. I mean, look, hunting is the hardest thing to get a landowner to say yes to.
Yep.
It's the hardest thing to insure, and if a landowner says yes to hunting, all the other stuff is easy. Like camping is a yes, fishing is a yes. Like all this other stuff. Like hunting is by far the hardest thing to get landowners to say yes to.
Yep. So if I'm a landowner here and I want to list my land, like what do you have requirements? How's that work with like what things do I have to make sure are happening for you to list with me? Is there expectations or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So I'd like to say most of our landowners are multi-generation farm ranch families. So these guys are, owner operator production ag landowners. It's not all of them, but the lion's share is. But no, for landowners, one, we need you to own the land. We don't really work with many guides or outfitters, and it's nothing against guides or outfitters. It's just, our platform, our model really is built on having the direct relationship with whoever owns that land. Just for contractual purposes, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And really, it's just about representing the land accurately. Just like any of these other marketplaces, like if you look at Airbnb, you could rent anything from a hostel to a castle, right?
Yeah.
From $15 a night to $15,000 a night. And so what it comes down to is accurately representing what the offering is. Hey, if you got 25 acres with a little bit of timber and a creek bottom, and you see turkeys and deer frequently, great. That's a property to do really well. But it's just about making sure you're accurately representing what the offering is and making sure that the price is commensurate with it. If you have 40,000 acres and you have a huge bull elk, that's a different price and a different offer.
So does that landowner get to choose their price? Do you have recommendations
Absolutely.
on that?
Yeah, so that's the big thing is landowners stay 100% in control of their land when they list with LandTrust. And a lot of our lenders had maybe at one point in the past leased and tried that.
Yeah.
And again, farmers and ranchers, they're living and working on that land most of the time. So that's like their home and where they work every day. And leases didn't end up loving them. Like, yes, you get a nice chunk of cash at the beginning, but you basically sold a property right away for a year or 2 years or however long it might be.
Right. Yeah.
So that means you've sold some control away from your place. And then, you can't hunt it if you like to. You can't let your friends and family, you can't let your neighbors, your business partners, use that land for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So with LandTrust, they stay 100% in control. They set all their own prices, all their own availability. Let's say, a family says, hey, look, my kids and I like to hunt whitetails, but we have turkeys and upland birds and waterfowl. Like we'll list on LandTrust for that stuff. Or they can block out their calendars. So, hey, it's, the week before Thanksgiving, the family's coming in town. We're blacking out dates for our family. So they have total control.
Yeah. So real similar to like some of the, like you said, your VRBO
exactly.
stuff where, like if it's your place, you can block it out and mark it off.
Right.
And so when they list it with you, if I were to list it with you, and like you said, I have whitetail and I want to hunt the whitetail, but in the spring, I don't care if you come hunt the turkeys. I can list it just turkeys. I don't have to just list it for hunting.
That's right. Yeah, it's you can list exactly the thing that you want, and maybe it's like, hey, I want to do 1 turkey hunt, or I want to do 3 turkey hunts, whatever it is. So you can pick the exact things you want. It's all your rules, right? So if it's, hey, I want you to come by, and stop by the night before and meet me, and it's whatever rules you want to use your land.
So thinking into this a little more. So like, let's say, can they limit to like doe hunt only? Or,
yes.
So kind of an opportunity for some of those landowners if they want those bucks, they can, but they need to do some conservation stuff. They can have someone come in with and shoot does in January or?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see a lot of people using LandTrust. They're bringing their kids out for hunts or first-time hunters who are looking just for doe hunts. Now, again, if your doe hunt's priced at $1,000 a day, you're probably not going to book any doe hunts.
Right.
So
right.
it's all about matching, again, the offering with the right price. It's normal market dynamics. So, but we do have lots of people using LandTrust to look for those kinds of hunts for first-time hunters, kids, even themselves. Like, hey, I want to fill a freezer. I'd love to just go out on a farm and shoot 2 or 3 does. Obviously, regulations depending. And
Sure.
Where I'm at in Montana, you could shoot 5 whitetail does. So yeah. And then you mentioned turkeys. We did more turkey hunting bookings last year than anything else.
Wow.
Turkey hunters love LandTrust because it enables them to. I mean, we have some guys who, I don't know if you like turkey hunting or not, but they're pretty fanatical.
Sure.
They're very passionate. And we'll see guys book 3, 4, 5, 6 turkey hunts on LandTrust in a spring, and they'll just do a big loop across states.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of the big thing. Seeing if you can catch all those breeds in 1 year, and it does seem like you always have. I mean, we talked a little bit, brought up the private public thing, but it seems like you're able to hunt deer on public a little easier than turkeys. We have some public land out here in western Nebraska that I hunt, but I also have some private that I hunt, and I don't know what it is, but I can tell you that private's easier to hunt turkeys on. It's just how it is. A lot of those river bottoms are typically locked up in private land, and so out here, it's
all the roosting, all the roosting.
Stuff,
I mean exactly. And those deer they'll travel out, and they'll go out in the plains.
Yep. So, what as a landowner, why would I, or what's my benefit? And I think I know the answer kind of after talking about some of the things you brought up, but why don't I book with an outfitter? Why don't?
Yeah. Again, it goes back to control.
Yeah.
So, and I want to be clear, we're not anti-outfitters or guides at all. It's just that it's a different offering.
Yep.
The metaphor would be, hey, just because Airbnb and VRBO exist hasn't killed hotels. So if I go stay at a hotel because I want to have a restaurant in there and I want to have certain services that I don't have at an Airbnb or VRBO. So in our world, guides and outfitters, good guides and outfitters, will always have a place because people are always going to want some extra services. They want camp, they want cooking, they want guides, all that stuff.
Yep.
LandTrust is really that DIY option. And so for a landowner, especially we found owner-operator production ag landowners, so farmers and ranchers who live and work on that property, they prefer LandTrust because they control it directly. If they lease to an outfitter, that outfitter, they don't have any say on who comes, when they come, none of that, right? The outfitter runs that property. So that would be the kind of big benefit over leasing to an outfitter.
Yeah, you maintain full control of your stuff, and you kind of get to choose. You can say not this weekend, not these days, not. And
and the other thing too on that point is they can just stop offering, and we see this a lot, by the way. They'll just say, hey, you know what? I think we're not going to offer any more buck hunts. We saw some success, and some guys came out and took a couple nice bucks, and we're just shutting it down for this year so that we have a good population for next year. And that's just because of the business model. Our landowners, hunting income is not their primary income, whereas an outfitter, it is. And so they have it, and again, there's nothing against outfitters, just a business model. So, hey, I paid, whatever, $10,000 for this lease. I need to make more than $10,000 in hunting, to make it profitable. And so the incentives are much different. We see on LandTrust all the time, people making inquiries with landowners, and they're like, hey, you know what? We've had some drought this last year, and the population's just not quite there. We're not going to do any hunts this year. And, and that's, this is ancillary income for them. This isn't their primary income. And they also live there, and they live there for their whole life. And they know what healthy populations look like. And they want to have this income opportunity for years to come. And so it's all about sustainability.
Yep. Now, what if once I'm scheduled, it's scheduled and they can't cancel, or do they still have the opportunity to be like, hey, actually, we're not going to be able to do this hunt, or?
Right. Yeah. So first thing, it's really important to call out when you book a property on LandTrust, it's about exclusive access to that property for the dates of your booking. So you and your group will be the only people on that property. Then we talk to our landowners. That's what we need to guarantee. So whether it's 20 acres or 20,000 acres, like that place is yours for the days that you booked.
Yeah.
And the landowner does have the ability to cancel. And we've seen it doesn't happen very often. We've seen it for weather purposes. We've seen it for, a few of these things. And if the landowner cancels, you get refunded.
Okay.
So you get your trip refunded. And now we just rolled out trip insurance. So as a guest, when you make a booking, especially if it's a booking like a year in advance and, it's a larger booking, you can purchase trip insurance just like you do for like an airfare or whatever.
Yep.
And if you need to cancel, you can get your money back as well.
Yeah. And obviously, like for the hunter or whatever, that's gonna suck. But it's the company, from what I'm hearing, is it's a good opportunity for people to maintain control of your land. And if you want that, the landowners to have that control, they have to have that option at least. And
we've seen it maybe less than a handful of times in 4 years, and
Okay.
it's been a couple of them were COVID related, right? When that whole thing busted out, you saw some of that. And actually, your state, Nebraska, we had to have some landowners cancel because Nebraska stopped selling over the counter turkey tags.
Yeah,
Remember that? So it was like
them.
Yeah, like I said, it is very, very, very infrequent.
Yep. Yeah, they actually capped our out-of-state deer tags this year too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have some friends around here that run some outfitting businesses, and that's kind of impacted them as a company.
Oh
too.
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine.
Is there when I list my land with you guys and I go in and we is there a contract we have to sign? Is it just an agreement we list? How's that work? Like, what are my and you said some of them already, but like, what are my responsibilities just to make sure on my end that I'm living up to what you guys are expecting?
Sure. Yeah. So first things first, LandTrust and our landowners, we're business partners. You are not my customer. We are partners. You own the land. We build the platform and build the marketing, and I only make money when you make money. We just take a percentage of transactions. It doesn't cost anything to sign up with us. So there's no contracts. Obviously our terms of service. When you create an account and list your land, you're agreeing to our terms of service. But you can shut your listing down anytime you want. Like, you can just log in and close it. So you have total control over that. As a business partner, we should be doing such a good job that you wouldn't want to do that, but you always have the opportunity to do that. So there's no annual or any sort of time contract. What we ask of our landowners, as I mentioned already, is an accurate representation of what your land is like and what the opportunity is. Yeah. And then just reply, like, honestly, just being responsive when people make inquiries and booking requests. Yeah. So if you get an inquiry from me, I'm like, hey man, I'd love to come down and chase antelope next year. I live in Montana, but I'm going to get them to do their archery tag down by you. And I had a couple quick questions. We just want our landowners to respond within what's called 24 to 48 hours. We know that our landowners are predominantly farmers and ranchers out of cell service a lot. So we set the expectation with our guests, like, hey, these are working farms and ranches. Give them a day or two to get back to you. Yeah. So that's all we really ask of our landowners, is to just be responsive when you get inquiries and booking requests, and make sure you're just representing the offerings correctly.
Yeah. How do you like, what's your process for like screening those lands? Like, how do you know that something that they're not listing something there's actually nothing there? Or is that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah. So we have in quite a few of our states, kind of our states where you'll see we have a lot more land. When I say 40 states, we might have a listing in a state. So it's a platform where people can hear about us on the news or whatever and then sign up. So like Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, North Dakota, Iowa, Missouri, I'm probably leaving a few out, but we have what's called landowner success managers. So these are full-time employees of LandTrust, and their whole job is meeting with new landowners, going out and visiting their place, taking photos, hanging game cams, talking to those landowners, understanding what they want and need, and really just like putting eyes on properties. So in all of those states, almost every property has been visited by one of our landowner success managers.
Yep.
So yeah, and we have partnerships with game cam manufacturers, so we can get discounts, and we get those out to our landowners, because obviously putting game cams on a place is a really nice way to be able to understand what's going on out there.
Yep.
But yeah, so in a lot of, and we talk, if we're not physically on the ground, we talk to every single one of our landowners.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's how we're approaching it today.
Cool. Awesome. And I know just that's my brother and I, that's always been one of our worries. Like, well, okay, so we throw $300 in and go and try to do this deer hunt, and maybe there's just a handful of deer there, and we're not knowing what's coming in. But yeah, I mean that's the hardest part probably for you guys.
Of course.
When people are booking, is knowing that stuff's legit and that they actually have. But if you guys got boots on the ground as much as possible, then like you said, it's not, you can't guarantee them nationwide yet.
No.
I'm sure that's your hope someday, that you can expand and have people boots on the ground nationwide. But to know,
well, I think look, on this point, it's also really a key point of who our landowners are. Like you grew up, and I'm sure your family, their farms, ranches, or your relatives do, or your neighbors do. These are, generally speaking, very honest people.
For sure. And
they often undersell what they have.
Yeah.
So, and our landowners are so concerned that they deliver a quality experience. They know people are paying hard-earned dollars to come out and enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a lot of absentee landowners who, have never been to this place and have no idea.
Yeah.
It's not like a timber lease or something like that. We're like, I don't know, I just done the thing. And so I think a big piece of our success in delivering quality experiences is that it is people who live and work on this land and have done for generations.
Yeah.
So that does help us a lot.
Yeah, they know that stuff like the back of their hand. They know exactly what
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Let's switch over. So we've talked a little bit about if I was listing and the landowner side. So we're obviously in our role, we're on the other side. So families were big into, like, we camp a lot, and I didn't end up booking something, but I was headed up to Montana, and I looked into LandTrust and just trying to find some places, and there were some cool, like, river spots, like along rivers that people got listed, like some really cool things. And this was a couple years ago, so I don't really remember why we ended up not doing it, but I know it's available. So, like, let's just talk a little bit about those possibilities. Like, I know we talked about some of those. You got fishing, you got hunting, camping. What are, like, is there a ton of camping stuff? Is like how's that compare in states?
Yeah, for sure. So, again, the company started around hunting. That was our first activity. Now, I always knew we were going to be just more of a outdoor recreation business. Hunting will always be a huge, huge activity and component of the business. But, it turns out people like to hunt, like you're saying, like to camp, like to fish, like to do all those stuff outside. Yeah. And so our landowners, we're learning as a business and a platform how to, create that product experience. We've gotten the hunting piece. We haven't gotten it totally figured out, but we've gotten pretty good at being able to facilitate, hunting trips and bookings and all that kind of stuff. We're learning the RV and camping side. So we're pushing more into that this year. Our site's changed quite a bit in the last month or two, and we want to make it easier for people to book just general outdoor recreation. So whether it's pulling along your camper trailer or tent, or booking a farm pond to go fish, we're getting more and more into that stuff, and those prices are going to be always like a lot cheaper than hunting. And it's really just kind of like, hey, we want to get to the point where, there's hunting packages, and then there's basically just everything outdoor recreation. So it could be foraging for morel mushrooms, shed hunting, fishing, camping, all that stuff will be rolled into one. And, it'll be affordable and easy to book. But there's some more logistics that we are just learning and figuring out how to package into the product the right way to make it really easy for people to book those types of things.
Yeah. As a user, do you think that's something that I need to keep an eye out on? Is it like if I'm hunting, trying to hunt a property, if they also have camping options, like do they book up? Because, like, for example, the private land that I hunt, I try to stay out of it for a lot of the year, and then I just dive in there when
Sure.
I'm ready. So, like, if someone's camping in there the weekend before,
Yep.
like, is that something? Like, do people list both hunting and camping stuff? First of all, like, do you have some landowners that do those? And if so, would you recommend that just be something I'm aware of as I'm going into places?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of the camping now is like as an add-on. So I'm booking this place to hunt, and I want to bring my camper.
Okay.
And so it's basically like a lodging type,
Mm-hmm.
and that works out well. Now, as we grow, this is the challenge. Essentially we have to productize property management or quality experiences.
Yeah.
And again, because our landowners are who they are, they know how to do this stuff innately. So yeah, they're not going to be like, hey, let's have a camper come in the day before opening day.
Right.
And they want to protect those high value activities, and by not booking those. But yes, there's a bunch of learning from the product to do. Look, most of the bookings today, 95% of them are hunting.
Yeah.
So as we grow these other things, these are all really good considerations. Say, okay, this should be blocked the month and a half before the season for any other activities, because that's the best way to run it.
Yep. And odds are you're not going to have to face that in mid-November, like when the rut's kicking in
No.
out here for whitetail.
Yeah.
But maybe if you're trying to
totally.
face a velvet buck in September or something like that, you might run into a little bit of that.
Yeah, and what's funny is that we've started to see just kind of organically hunters who are booking a property, let's say for September, October, November, coming over the summer and just booking some camping and fishing just to see the property and get a feel for it.
Makes sense. I don't remember what the camping and booking, but I mean, I imagine they're 50
It's like
to 100
$50.
bucks.
Yeah, exactly. And you can bring the family out. And,
Yeah.
kind of knock two birds with one stone there.
It's no more than a campsite, and myself, I'd rather camp out in the woods anyways. So.
Yeah, exactly.
With you said about 95% of your bookings are hunting stuff. So like, how's availability? Like, is it tough to get, especially in those prime times of the season? Is it like, do I need to be booking like months in advance, a year in advance? Like, how's availability?
We do see. Yeah. So look, we do see certain properties. I mean, it's kind of like anything else, right? If you've got a bunch of great reviews, big bucks on camera, or lots of turkeys, or whatever it might be, those properties are gonna, potentially book those. If it's opening day for turkeys or the rut or whatever, they do tend to book, but there's still a ton of availability right now. We have people booking what we call local spot trips, which is, if you're where you live in, you book a place within a couple hours of your house for the weekend.
Okay,
So it's Friday. What's available for tomorrow, or a couple days out from now. So that stuff is still very much available. I know you can refine by dates that you're looking forward to, but hey, look, we got guys booking next year's trips right now.
Yeah.
I just saw 2024 booking come through. So I think for those bigger trips, where we call them hunting vacations, where it's you and probably 2-3 of your buddies or family booking your Montana elk hunt or something. That stuff is getting booked. It can be getting booked as early as a year ahead of time.
Yep. Well, and that's having some of that availability is important too, because you got blue collar guys working and don't ever know what weekend, and all of a sudden, like you said, it gets to Friday and you're like, oh, yep, I can hunt this weekend. Here we go.
Yeah, I got the green light from the wife.
Yeah, exactly.
That's me, man.
Yeah,
honestly, that's the local spot.
Yeah.
So, that's a good point, by the way. So, if you haven't created an account, I would, if any of this is interesting to any of your listeners, here's what I would say. Create your free LandTrust account. It'll take you 1 minute. You go to landtrust.com, hit sign up. And then in the sign up process, we ask you, hey, what do you like to do? Do you like to hunt? Do you like to fish? Do you like RVing, camping? A couple other things. And if you select hunting, then we're going to ask you, hey, what state do you live in? What states are you interested in? What species are you interested in? Because we're adding thousands and thousands of acres every week to the platform. And so if you say, hey, I'm interested in mule deer in Montana, the next property that we set live that has mule deer hunting in Montana, we're going to text and email it to you. So essentially, we're like scouting 24/7, 365 for you. And, So that's also from an availability perspective. It's not like, we're not staying static on how much land we have and how much properties. We're growing it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go in and if you created your profile a long time ago, go back in and log into your profile, and under your profile and interests, just tell us that stuff. And then we are literally, you'll just get get emails and text messages. We're not going to spam you. It'll only be the stuff that you're interested in.
Awesome. Yeah.
So if you see stuff that's interesting, you just make an inquiry and connect with the landowner, and then, book.
And does that, when we make those bookings, when we reserve, do we connect directly with the landowner, or is that okay?
Yeah, so you can contact the landowner first.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So there's I believe it's contact landowner button. So if you see a property, a package that you're interested in, but you have a couple questions, which is natural, of course. You just hit contact landowner. You send them a quick inquiry with any of your questions. They're the ones responding to you. And then if it all looks good, you send a booking request. It's all, credit card paid up front. And then when they accept it, you get the Onyx maps, HuntWise maps of the property, waypoints. You get the landowner's number, address, their arrival instructions, everything.
Wow. So it's like DIY, kind of, but it
100%
gets you a whole bunch of information.
It gives you all that, exactly. And, hey, look, the landowners are usually pretty heavily involved. It all depends on the landowner. Some of them are saying, hey, look, I'm busy. Like, this is do it yourself. And a lot of them will say, we're happy to show you around, talk to you.
Yeah.
So they're always very friendly, and they're always answering all the questions that our sportsmen have.
Yeah. And so, obviously, like we talked, most of these landowners, the farmers, ranchers, for lack of better, the good old boys, right? Like,
yep.
Like they're gonna be pretty honest with you, but as a hunter, like I also have to realize that if I'm hunting like late season, like there's a chance that there's been a lot of bucks killed already, and that maybe it's still listed. Is that?
Yeah. So we're working. Yeah. Again, calling out that most of our landowners are farmers and ranchers who live on those properties, and they do monitor it. And I just saw an inquiry come through yesterday, and I told the landowner, say, hey, we're done with bucks for the season.
Yeah. They don't want them all dead either, because then year after year, I mean, that's that supplemental income that we talked about for them. Like
exactly. So they're on top of the fact that this is just their home, and they want to see wildlife on their properties. Yeah. But there's a profit incentive there too. Like, hey, maybe you kill all your bucks this year and you made some money this year, but that's gone next year and for the years to come.
Yep.
So the other thing we do is when we onboard landowners now, we ask them like a bunch of questions about kind of populations and all that stuff. And we now say, okay, you want to do spring turkey hunt packages on your property? How many of those packages? And they'll say, after some conversation, they'll say, hey, well, let's do 3 spring turkey hunt packages. And so there's just 3 of them available. Yeah. And then you'll see, if you go on LandTrust right now, you'll see sold out. So that's us trying to make sure that we give those landowners those controls, and we give sportsmen the confidence that, hey, if this isn't, an infinite amount of hunts that they're going to do during the season, there's 2 of them. There's 3 of them.
Yep. And one thing we always stress to our viewers and listeners is, like, it's still hunting. Like, you're not going to go in there and be just because you're going through LandTrust. Like, you're not guaranteed that you're going to get a harvest. So, like, don't be coming out of here sending Nick this nasty email saying you guys have this thing posted and I didn't kill anything. Like, it's still hunting. Like, you're going out.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's, and I say this often. If you need to kill like a 200-inch deer, or you're not going to be happy, and by the way, no judgment there. I want to kill a 200-inch deer too.
Right.
But if that's like, if I'm not happy if I didn't do that, you should not book with LandTrust. Yeah. Now, do we have properties that's possible? Absolutely, especially in Iowa. I could send you some pictures after this and blow your mind. But or hey, I put in for this tag for 15 years. I finally drew it. None of my buddies have it, obviously. You should hire an outfitter. You should hire a guide and outfitter and like go get it done.
Yeah.
So we really want to make sure that we're attracting the people who this is about experience, not outcome. Now, we have lots of success on the platform, but it's really about the mindset. Like, hey, for me at this stage of my life, like I mentioned, I got a young family. I'm running a business. I mean, last year, I got to hunt 3 days. Honestly, it's just that season of life, right?
Yep.
And for me, when I go out and I get those 3 precious days outdoors, I want to be disconnected, and I don't want to have to deal with other people, frankly. So I just want to go be by myself or with a buddy or two who's with me. And driving up to a parking lot or a trailhead with 20 trucks in it is just, it kind of kills it for me.
Yeah.
So to me, that's
pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like I have one day. If I had 15 days, all right, that's a different thing. But I get 1 day or 2 days. I just want to go be out in nature by myself and not have to worry about that. And so, for guys who that resonates with, guys with young kids, you're taking them out, guys with first-time hunter, you're taking your wife out or whatever it might be. Exclusive access to land is a really nice thing.
Yep.
Doesn't mean it's guaranteed by any means. I've hunted a lot of private and struck out. Still hunting, there's still wild animals.
Yep.
And then I think, the other thing that we see a ton, and you can go read Google, if you go look at LandTrust Google reviews, you can read a bunch of reviews from people, and also all the different packages and properties have reviews from people who've been out there. But the thing that stands out for both the landowner and the guests is how much they enjoy the interaction with each other. And you'll hear guest reviews like, "Oh my gosh, I met the Johnsons, and they're so amazing, and they're so helpful with us. I got to hear about the operation and the history, and there's just those connections between the landowner and the sportsman that's also a big piece of this."
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's one thing we always try to push to our viewers and listeners. Like I said, like you said, we all want to kill that 200-inch buck, but
yes,
we're family oriented. Like, if we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if it wasn't about spending time with family. Like,
that's right.
Very rarely do we go out by ourselves. We want to go out and have a good time and have property to access and things like that. So that's awesome. Yeah. So it doesn't seem to be as big of a push right now, but definitely a couple years ago there was all this public landowner, public land hunters, everything.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So what's this? And this
I live in Montana, man.
Yeah. And this was really the biggest push. Honestly, was kind of like when you were starting this. Like if you're 4 years old, like I said, it's still happening. Like everybody's public land, a lot of that. But really, 2 to 4 years ago was probably the biggest push. What's that look like for LandTrust? How's that affect you guys?
Well, and it was all coming from organizations based out of Montana, right?
Yeah.
BHA and Meat Eater and Onyx, all of our neighbors. Yeah, I joke, other than Missoula, Montana, Bozeman, Montana is probably the least friendly place to start a private lands company in the hunting space. So, we're very familiar with it. Look, first of all, we love public lands.
Yeah.
This whole public versus private to me is nonsensical.
I agree.
It's public and private. And guess what? It's kind of ironic because Montana is a bit of a bubble in the hunting world because you have some really big names in Montana.
Yep.
But what I think they tend to forget is that Montana is tiny as far as it comes from a representation of actual hunters.
Yep.
Texas and Pennsylvania have more licensed hunters than Montana has citizens. And, but we have a huge megaphone because of some of the companies and people that live here.
Yep.
So first of all, like I said, public land's awesome. But most hunters live in states that have less than 20% of public lands. Yeah. And guess what? The lower 48 is 70% private. So we're a private lands company. If you want to open up more access to hunting, private land is where all the opportunity is.
Yeah.
And for me, the crowding and all that kind of stuff has happened. It's not because there's more hunters. We can look at licensed sales data. There are not more hunters, and there's a lot less hunters per capita than there's ever been. It's because we're losing land.
Yeah.
It's not the demand, it's the supply. We're losing 175 acres an hour of agricultural lands to development. So roughly same amount or maybe a little less hunters, but a lot less supply. And so as we all know from market economics, there's fixed demand and shrinking supply. There's going to be a lot more demand for that existing supply. So, I want to figure out, and I think LandTrust is, a tool in the toolbox for this, is how do we make sure that ag lands and undeveloped lands stay undeveloped and stay habitat and stay, quote, huntable. And it comes down to money, man. I know a lot of people, they hear profit and hunting in the same sentence and their hair lights on fire, but we live in the real world. I always hear, oh, pay to play. It's like, yeah, but landowners have to pay to stay.
Yeah, that's true.
So, they've got property taxes. They're running a business. Agriculture is an incredibly difficult business, and so much is out of their hands. Commodity prices are out of their hands. Input prices are out of their hands. Fuel prices are out of their hands. Drought or whatever is out of their hands. So if we can be a part of a solution, we're not a silver bullet, but I talk to a lot of landowners where the LandTrust income is paying property taxes.
Yeah.
It's not making them rich. It's not making them rich.
Taxes are a huge deal.
Oh, especially in your state. Your guys' state, property taxes are onerous.
Yeah.
But, again, we're not a silver bullet, but I want to change that mindset that I see as very selfish of like, I should be able to do this for free because I like it.
Right.
And, it's like, well, yeah, look, it's private land. It costs me a lot of money to stay here and to steward this land. But by the way, it's supporting a lot of habitat for a lot of wildlife. And, I just think it should be something we see as, hey, we're putting our money where our mouth is if we care about conservation and habitat, wildlife, and hunting. The private landowner supports a lot of it on their own time.
Yep, and that's their livelihood too. Like they couldn't
100%.
make their life function hardly without that land that they have. So if they're willing to open it up for even a small cost so people can access it, like that's still, like you said, that's still giving us more access to land that wasn't previously available.
Yeah, look, access is a spectrum, and it's from, federal public lands, which is anybody, anywhere, anytime for pretty much anything, to no access on private land. And there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be different solutions between those two sides. Look, state programs that pay landowners for hunter access, that's great. And then there's, leasing, and there's purchasing land, and then there's us. And I think being able to, quote, rent access to land for as little as a day or a couple days, that's going to open up private land access affordably to way more of the market. Like, I can't personally afford an annual lease somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I just don't. Again, at this stage of my life, I just can't. I obviously can't buy land.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I can go use state. In our state it's called block management. That's awesome, and I've hunted block management a lot. I killed my antelope doe in block management last year, which again is landowners making money from allowing hunting access, but instead of the hunter paying for it directly, the state is paying for it out of license fees.
Yep.
But, I think that what we're doing opens up a lot of really quality private land access to a lot of people, almost all of our customers, the people who use LandTrust are blue-collar guys. And it just makes it a little bit more attainable.
Yep. Do you get... I'm sure you probably do, and it's unfortunate that you do, but I'm sure you get a lot of guys that are outspoken and hard against what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, some of them have famous brothers. But yeah, look, and I honestly think a lot of it comes from not actually understanding what the business is. And I find that often it's, they have very contradictory stances. So one of the very popular ones is, no pay to play hunting, but then they're super supportive of programs like block management. It's like, well, that's a landowner getting paid for allowing hunting access.
Right. Yep.
So like you actually love pay to play hunting. You just don't want to be the one paying directly.
Yep.
And again, I find a lot of very contradictory statements from folks like that. And I also think that we have to have this conversation that like access isn't conservation.
Yep.
State funded programs to pay landowners for hunting access, they do a good job at providing more access, and that's their stated goal. But I know in Montana, our block management cap on earnings for a landowner is now $50,000 a year. And that might sound great, but then you look at, they get paid $13 per hunter day. So do the math. They'd have to have like 3,300 hunter days on their property in a single season.
Yeah.
Is it a win for access? Yes. That's potentially 3,300 hunter days that were allowed on that property for hunting. Do you think there's much good going on for the land, the wildlife, and the habitat on that property? Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Yep.
Probably not. So look, these are conversations that I don't think are had because they're seen as, all hunter access is good. and having a conversation about, well, honestly, a lot of times habitat and wildlife conservation and access are we actually don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
Like a property that has 3 days of hunter access a year is probably going to have better wildlife and habitat and conservation qualities than one that has 3,300.
Yep.
Not
sure.
probably, definitely.
It definitely will.
So,
will.
yeah, but there's a spectrum, and I think the more private land access that comes onto a platform like LandTrust and allows controlled access to the land for these activities, can find some sort of balance between increasing access. Yes, you got to pay for it, while still providing quality, experiences and quality habitat and wildlife conservation.
Yep. And love it or hate it. The fact of the matter is, there's always going to be private land, and it's just how we get access to it, or if we do, and putting so much control back in that landowner's hands, where they have the control of it, and they're not just dishing it out to where anybody can go at any time, can make a big difference for them. And that can be the change of whether they allow access at all or not.
That's right. Well, I've often wanted to ask some of these very vocal opponents of models like ours. By the way, we didn't invent this. Leasing hunting land's been around probably since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, do you own ground? So you're very vocal about how landowners should allow open public access to everybody. But do you own ground? Do you own huntable ground? I would bet none of them would raise their hand. If any of them did, I said, well, I would like to ask them, do you allow open public access for hunting on your ground? Yep. I would bet not.
Yep.
So it's a bit, it strikes me a bit hypocritical,
Yep. Without a doubt.
I don't own any ground. I aspire to one day, and when I do, I want private property rights are the cornerstone of the American dream.
Yep.
So I want to be able to do with it as I see fit. That's best for the land and my family.
Yep. Without a doubt. And I don't imagine there's a lot of people out there that are going to tell you that they're hoping to one day own land so that everybody can hunt it. Like that's
totally,
that's probably not a reason why I'm going to go buy this river ground. Like
no, you're like, I want to just do that. Yeah, no. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So you touched on conservation and stuff a little bit. What does LandTrust do to enforce and support conservation with all wildlife? Like there's obviously many different things out there to do that with, but how do you guys work your way into that and support that?
Yeah. So, well, I think, look, placing profit on quality habitat and wildlife kind of does this on its own.
Yeah.
So, in Nebraska, I've been out to the Sandhills. We have a lot of ground in Nebraska now, and I remember going down for the first time to the Sandhills, I think 2021. And you go talk to a rancher about LandTrust, and like, oh man, I got a lot of turkeys. Like turkeys, you could shoot every turkey out there, go for it.
Yeah.
They're just like, they're out there eating their feed and everything. Like they could care less.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this to say anything bad about ranchers. It's just the perspective.
Yep.
But then the next year they make $5,000 from hosting a handful of turkey hunters. They're like, holy smokes! We literally have had them come back to us and say, hey, can you introduce us to someone to tell us how to have better turkey habitat?
Yep.
Why? Because they're bleeding heart conservationists? No, because they can make money from it. And that's not to say that they're they don't. Of course, these people steward landscapes and wildlife and livestock for a living. They know more about all this stuff than we do. But I say that because that model incentivizes it.
Yeah.
So it's an income stream. And so how do we make sure we make that income stream bigger and better?
Yep.
On top of that, if you go to make a booking on LandTrust, and let's just say you're booking a turkey hunt, you'll see that there's a $10 conservation fee that's added on top. So the cool thing about when you facilitate a transaction like we do, it doesn't matter where in the world you're from. If you're going to go hunt turkeys in Nebraska, you put $10 in the hat for NWTF's Nebraska stuff.
Awesome.
So we just we take that and pass it to that organization. So we do the same thing for different species conservation organizations.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's great. I like I said, I hadn't actually booked anything. I'd explored the website and stuff like that, but I didn't realize there's a portion of that actually goes direct to them. That's awesome.
Yeah, $10. It's not. I don't think anyone has heartburn over it, but it's it's like, hey, I think it's probably what 30% of an annual membership to something like NWTF.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, we have guys again who book 5-6 turkey hunts in a season across different states. They put $60 towards NWTF.
Yep. And as you continue to grow, that number that goes to
becomes
NWTF
real meaningful.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not blowing the doors off them right now, but hey, it's money that would have not come to them in another way.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, Nick, is there anything else that you wanted to make sure we know about LandTrust? What you guys got going on there?
No, I'd say that, like I said, if any of this conversation sounds interesting, even if you're not like, oh yeah, I want to go book something now, just create a free account, and tell us the stuff that you're interested in, and we'll send you properties that might that fit those interests, and you can always just make an inquiry, contact a landowner. You don't have to go straight to booking. You can digitally door knock, from your home or your phone, and I'd just say that's a good first step. And look, we're here to facilitate great outdoor experiences, and really reconnect the landowner with the sportsman in a way that seems to be working really well. I mean, we have 98% 5-star reviews from our landowners to their guests after their bookings. Nice. And that's a pretty different story than we heard before, where we have kind of strained relationships between sportsmen and landowners in some areas.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you joining in here with us, Nick. I think
I appreciate you having us.
We're going to close her out, and thanks for listening, everybody, tuning in. And make sure you guys check out LandTrust. That's landtrust.com. Is that right, Nick?
That's right. Yep. And I think our Instagram is LandTrust_hunt. If you search it, you'll probably
see it. I just searched LandTrust and it pops right up. So you can't really miss it. So make sure you guys check LandTrust out if you're looking for some access to some land. Maybe your public lands are overcrowded, or you're looking for some private access weekends or whatever that is. So make sure you guys all check them out, and we'll catch you all on the next video.
Thanks, Brian.